Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, Red Raider Hoops gets a commitment from Arizona State transfer Devin Cambridge. What's he bring to the table? How'd he get here? And what's next for Grant McCaslin and company? Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. And Chris, great to be back with you. Kicking off another week and doing it in kind of an unexpected way, I guess, at least as it relates to, I don't know, say 4 or 5 days ago. Now, maybe within the last 36, 72 hours, you out there paying attention became familiar with the name Devin Cambridge. But this is a name I did not know at this time last week, Chris. But this is now a guy who's set to be a Red Raider. And, man, what an interesting path he has traveled to become a Red Raider. We'll get into the details. We'll get into what he looks like on the court, what kind of addition this is for Grant McCaslin and company. But I guess we just have to start at the beginning, Chris, because I know it was very late last week that this kind of became a thing. Hey, keep an eye out on this guy. He's visiting and then some, because maybe the relationship was a little bit further advanced than most of us knew, or certainly I knew of at all. What was the beginning of this? How did you hear about the relationship, and kind of give us some context of how it went down last week to get him on campus?
Yeah, I think, and I can't talk in absolutes per se, but I think this has been in a possibility for the last couple of weeks as a maybe loose possibility. Then it got shifted into overdrive, obviously, as last week played out. But look, this is I think the relationship is that there's some of the folks on the tech staff that are aware of the Cambridge family, because his Devin has an older brother named Desmond who is just now graduated from Arizona State, I believe, on the Raptors summer league team, or has signed a free agent. Kind of wasn't drafted, but has signed an agreement with the Raptors, and so he's a part of that organization. So there's brothers here. Devin is the younger brother, I guess. I think that's right, because he's classified under him, or maybe they're anyway. I need to make sure that I'm positive on that.
Hey, and his brother's Desmond also, right? Because this was tripping me up a little bit.
Yeah, Desmond and Devin. Yes,
over the weekend.
Yes. I don't think they're twins, but anyway. So obviously Desmond was going to the NBA, and these both of these the Cambridge brothers were at Arizona State last year, and so I don't know the reasoning, but obviously Devin makes a decision at some point to transfer to Oregon, and that's where he's going to play his I guess quote unquote COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's operating as a grad transfer, and so with that he's got to take some hours this summer in order to be like a full-fledged member of Oregon or Texas Tech or whatever he was going to go. He's got to do some things this summer before he can be a full-fledged member of whatever program, but he can work toward that. It's very doable and all those things on getting it done. But I surmise that, and I think this is, you have to be careful in this day and time about, casting aspersions or anything, but it's almost like that Oregon said, if you come here, here's what's available, here's what we can do for you, something along those lines. And then at some point that didn't happen, or it was a bit of a different story. And so there was a bit of I don't know if the right term is, I hate to be so, vague on some of this stuff, but I obviously we don't know the details, but this is what I've been able to surmise is that, things weren't as they were promised or as he thought they were, whatever the case, whether that's NIL, whether that's class schedule, whether that's playing time, who the heck knows? Doesn't really matter. And so I think it kind of opened the door for somebody else. Well, then you enter Warren Washington, who played with obviously the Cambridge brothers last year and some of these other relationships. And this is something that was a possibility and a very strong possibility in the middle of last week. And then Oregon, I think, kind of was like, you know, let's make good on this. Let's try to fix this. What can we do? And so it kind of became a bit of a, I don't know, tug of war, bidding war, relationship war. I don't know.
War of the Roses.
Yes, there you go. There you go. I believe I believe you had a member of the Texas Tech staff in Phoenix with player and dad and other pertinent parties late last week trying to get this done or get a feel for it or whatever. But I think the decision was made late Friday night that he had chosen Texas Tech over Oregon. And he's allowed to do this because as he can operate as a grad transfer. And again, I want to caution, he can't be a full-fledged member of any program until he gets some of this school done. But with online and everything like that, I would say by mid-July, early August, because I think he's already living here basically now. His stuff is here. He's probably hanging with his buddy Warren Washington right now. So in this day and age, man, it's just like, because you're sitting here looking at it, Cowan, and going, you got some scholarships. Like, what in the world are we going to do with them? We need help. We need immediate help. And then somebody like this becomes available that maybe you weren't even expecting. So I guess the joke's on us. That we were stressing about, what are you going to do with these last available spots? But
hey, if the punchline is a player like this, play another joke on me. I'm ready for the next. I'm ready for the next one, man, because that worked out all right. We'll get to what he is between the lines in just a moment. But Chris, I'm really wondering, literally and figuratively, if Warren Washington was the biggest piece of this bridge being built. I mean, I don't know. Do you know of another connection to like a staff member or anything Texas Tech wise, or did this kind of come about or become a possibility because Washington wound up in Lubbock? I don't want to put too much on it, but it sounds like that relationship was a really big part of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think Coach AC on the Texas Tech staff, I think there's some relationships there. And I believe who was in Phoenix late last week, Thursday, Friday-ish. And I think, he helped. And I think that was a big part of why Devin Cambridge is now a Red Raider. I think there's several factors involved here. But it just comes down to comfort level. And I don't know what his reasoning was on choosing Oregon and what his reasoning specifically was on kind of going, you know what, I'm not sure if this is for me. And we'll get to that at the end of the show today. But there's a variety of players that have kind of made decisions with the timing being extremely odd or off the radar. And it's you're just not real sure because this possibility has been made available to these guys. And when you're a grad transfer, and you can operate under those rules or that premise, you really have no rules. You can do whatever you want as far as transfer. You can go wherever you want, whenever you want. There's really no questions that could be asked. And again, it's just a one-time kind of scenario. But yeah, they don't have to worry about the portal window and all that junk. No, you're free to move about the cabin, like Southwest Airlines would say.
Yeah, have gun will travel, have jump shot will travel, whatever it is. Kind of a gun for hire in a way, more so untethered than some of those who haven't hit that grad transfer category. But excited to see this guy in action on the floor, and we'll get to coming up dead ahead what he will bring to the table. Obviously, if you're talking grad transfer, you're not thinking you're talking young guy, right? Which is a good thing in this day and age in college basketball. So we'll get to some of what he brings to the locker room as far as college basketball seasoning. but also what shoes does he fill? Where does he stand on the court? Where'd I go, Coach? Where am I standing? We're getting into that coming up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. With Major League Baseball in full swing, no better place to get busy with all of the action than America's #1 sports book. And if you're a new customer, your timing is on point because right now new customers qualifying for the no sweat first bet, $1,000 back to you in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So download the FanDuel app in the App Store today. Safe, secure, and easy to use. Or head to FanDuel.com/locked-on and get busy with FanDuel. Always getting paid instantly with FanDuel Sportsbook, and that's just one reason why they're America's #1 sportsbook. So again, dive in. The water is warm, particularly if you're a new customer, because you got the no sweat first bet coming your way, up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So head on over to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on and take advantage of the no sweat first bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're doing it. We appreciate it. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. With Chris, I'm Casey, and having fun today talking about an addition to Grant McCaslin's Red Raider basketball roster, and we'll get to the roster coming up just ahead. 1, 2, 3. I feel like the owl on the tree trying to figure out how many spots are left for Texas Tech, so maybe some clarity can be offered here today because, conversations bubble up with guys that are available and guys that all of a sudden are Red Raiders that maybe you didn't even know was still, possible or a possibility at all 5, 7, 10 days ago. So if this Cambridge experience has taught us anything, Chris, like we were just alluding to a moment ago, it's keep your head on a swivel because interesting conversations could be just around the corner. We were talking about some of the backstory and the context to kind of the path to him becoming a Red Raider. But I'm curious on the court, what you see him as, what you think he brings to the table there. And as I said a moment ago, man, you're a grad transfer. You're old in the college game, a lot of seasoning. You've seen a lot of college basketball. I'm wondering what he could bring from that perspective as well, because, man, as you look to an offseason to rebuild a roster, you're going to have to rely on some leadership, probably from some newcomers, guys that weren't here a season ago. So I'm wondering if Cambridge could be one of those guys. But how do you describe him in the total package kind of way as a basketball player, Chris? What do you think Grant McCaslin and company have gotten here?
Yeah, I would say on paper, your two maybe best, most experienced, and I don't know if best is entirely accurate, but I think you'll get what I'm saying after I explain my point. But I think your two most proven and experienced players are these Arizona State teammates from last year, Warren Washington and Devin Cambridge. And I don't know if they'll be your best, but they're not going to be, I would probably only throw in, Darian Williams, Chance McMillan, or Pop Isaacs even as a possibility to be like to crack that conversation.
Yeah.
So the point is, though, is you got, this was and you could follow the social media stuff, and you could follow what Coach McCaslin and Coach Brower and some of those folks were saying on social media. Today was a good day. I mean, they knew they got better, and I think even that's what Matt Brower even said. It was like, we got a lot better today, or something along those lines. But I think this is a player that I love these kinds of guys, man. I mean, I just get you get the Davion Warren and Adonis Arms type flashbacks with guys like this. Guys that they're looking for a different situation, a change of scenery. I think this is a player, like how he fits basketball-wise with your team. I think he's a starter for sure. I mean, I think that's what you're dealing with. I think he could play honestly, depending on what kind of lineup you want to throw out there, I think he could pretty much play all 5 positions if you needed him to. I don't know if he would be an ideal option at point guard or at center, but I think that you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I wrote this on RedRaidersports.com the other day because I think if you remember back to the Bob Knight days, and this is lofty praise, and it's probably not entirely accurate, but I think you'll get what my point is. I'm trying to make is, but guys like Darian Williams and now Devin Cambridge, they have some Kasib Powell vibes to them.
Yeah,
Kasib Powell was in the early Bob Knight days, man, and he was never going for 30. But he was a threat to go for a double-double, triple-double all the time because he just kind of filled up the stat sheet. He ran point forward. He could guard your center. At times he just kind of did a little bit of everything. Devin Cambridge, I don't think is quite as good as Kasib Powell. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. And then Darian Williams, there's still some potential that needs to be realized, but that's kind of in the mold of what these guys are. These guys are positionless. They could do a variety of different things. They'll get you a steal, maybe a block, an occasional shot. They can facilitate. They can score at some. And so I'm big on guys like this because this is kind of how basketball is going, man. Versatile, positionless. And so I think this was a really, really good ad. And heck, if there's another one out there just like him, I would take him too.
No question about that. And the way you started that, talking about he in Washington, kind of made me think about the advantage that you're having there. Hopefully, what turns out to be a luxury that you've got, not only some guys that have some experience, obviously, on this level. Cambridge, I think, has started 65, 68 games in the last 3 years, Arizona State to Auburn. Just under double digits from a scoring standpoint. So we'll see if he can take another step there in that column. But has been an impactful rebounder, had his best year in that category last season for the Sun Devils. But I'm just thinking about chemistry. I mean, if you're counting on guys to be some of your best, sure as hell wouldn't hurt that they played last season together, right? In Washington and Cambridge. I don't overstate it because I don't know what it actually looks like on the floor, but it can't hurt after so many years, Chris. We've had the experience of like, okay, well, here's some older guys, but hell, they just met one another. So now let's try to piece them together. And sometimes that's worked out really, really well. But here's a pair with a little background, and hopefully that shows up on the court as far as the feel for one another.
Yeah, I think the chemistry piece is because you when you bring somebody in, there's always from the outside in. I know, Grant and his staff have to look at all the dynamics, not just talent level of a player, because I think we would be willing to admit there's probably some players that were on last year's team that could have returned that aren't here. And maybe some of that is chemistry related and just like not a good fit for whatever reason.
Yeah, talented players, like players that will probably go score well elsewhere or whatever.
Correct. And it just may have not made sense here. And Joey has to make the same decisions. I mean, I've had Joey tell me repeatedly, without getting into specific players, he would always just say, when we think about bringing somebody in, I don't care how talented they are. I don't even care if they were to help us win a game on occasion or something. If they were to screw up our locker room, I won't touch them. I don't care. You can't afford it because that's like, I think that he holds the locker room and team chemistry and the culture and all those things, in the highest regard. And you mess it up, and sometimes you may never get it back.
Yeah.
And I think, and so to your point here about these Arizona State teammates, and because I mean, look at their social media posts, the two players. It's like you knew it was going down and it was all happening whenever Warren Washington was like, sending out excitement, emojis and GIFs and all these different things. And then you had, I think it was actually Cambridge, or maybe it was Washington that did it too. But they had the pictures of them as teammates and all that. And then there was a picture of them with the tech shirts on and all that kind of stuff back in Lubbock, I believe. And so, yeah, you could just tell there's a relationship there. And I think that goes a long way. I mean, that was the secret sauce when it came to that team that went to the last team that went to the Sweet 16 for Texas Tech that you ended up losing to Duke to, is they just got along so well. They were all very mature. And that's why you can't have a roster full of the aged. Okay. Right. because at some point you keep rolling the dice, and it's like we can't go one and done every single year, and then sprinkle a little salt and pepper on this thing, and like it tastes great.
Right.
You need a little, and that's why this is a great mix. And I would love one more older guy, because you've got your freshmen, Cowan, and you've got that are now sophomores. These are your program type guys that you can kind of grow with, and you keep sprinkling in. Your Chance McMillans and your Darian Williams. Those guys they've got multiple years left to come back and play. Even Kerwin Walton and DeMarion Williams, who the holdovers from last year, they've got another year to stay here after this one if they wanted to use it. And so this is just, because Warren Washington and Devin Cambridge, these are guys that are going to just be with you for 1 year. And so, but I just think in this day and age, man, it just made you a lot more competitive. And I would love to add another ingredient like that as well.
No doubt. And can't wait to see what the next move is going to be for Grant McCaslin and his staff. And in order to prepare for that, we may need to know how many spots there are literally left to fill. So I was curious, Chris, can we wrap up today's conversation with some roster convo? And I guess we could just start with what has kind of left a gate open in a way that was maybe not expected a little while back, and that's the status of Deshaun Jackson. Let's start there. And I guess we could just start with what has kind of left a gate open in a way that was maybe not expected a little while back, and that's the status of Deshaun Jackson. Let's start there.
We knew a couple of weeks ago you had 2 scholarships left. Okay, you do the math. You've got 2 scholarships. You're allowed 13. And, so let's just play this game here. You've added Deshaun Jackson, then you've added Devin Cambridge. Stands to reason those are your 2 spots, right? You're done. Well, then why are you hosting a visitor in the middle of this week named Joe Toussaint, the guard out of West Virginia? Why would you consider Javon Quinterly, who just got into the portal from University of Alabama, as a guard? I'm sure everybody's going to come after him, but you get my point. If everything was squared away, and I believe, look, there was a reason that Deshaun Jackson missed last season. I think I don't know specifics. I'm not going to pretend to get into that, get into the weeds there, but I think there was just a medical issue. And so I think that's why he was out last year. That's been reported. You can go look that up. And I think maybe everything's not right there. Maybe he doesn't have enough transferable credits. It doesn't really matter, but I do believe that is very much in question. I don't, at this point right now, expect that to be resolved. And so I think that's why you see that they are operating with 1 spot available. And so in all the things that you can do with that spot, and there's a lot. Now I'm more of a bird in the hand guy, and I'm more about instant gratification. Okay. But I would love to see them use it if they find the right guy. Look, we've heard, about a prospect that's in the portal from Rutgers, 6'7", kind of guard type, very similar to Cambridge. You've got, a guard out of West Virginia it's widely been reported that will be here visiting this week. You have the guard from Bama that just entered the portal in the last day or so, and who knows who else, gets into the portal and becomes available for whatever reason. And again, it only makes sense for you if you can add somebody if it's an immediate upgrade over what you have, and they can help you right now. I just don't know if there's an option out there of somebody that you could add if, they have to sit it out this year. If that's the case, in my opinion, one of the other options you have is to hold that scholarship and not use it right now. And then when semester rolls around, somebody somewhere is going to be frustrated. Jalen Tyson sound familiar. Kyron Lindsey sound familiar. You pulled these players from Texas and from Georgia at mid-semester. They wanted to get back either closer to home or didn't like the situation they were in. Not everybody's got an open scholarship. You did. And so I can't say that either one of those have worked out. I mean, we barely, saw much of Jalen Tyson, and it wasn't all world per se. And then Kyron Lindsey hasn't played yet, but you get what I'm saying. There's opportunities out there to add players. And so these are kind of on the table, but I think that, Calvin, to answer your question, I think you have a spot left. Yes.
Yeah, and you never know what's coming up around the corner. You could have a head coach on a recycling spree somewhere, and then all of a sudden that becomes a very interesting roster. And that's where we'll close, I guess, today. All eyes on Morgantown, right, man? I'm really interested in I keep screwing up the name, Joe Toussaint, who's expected to be in West Texas on Wednesday. This is one of those guys that has a lot of attention right now.
Yeah, he is, and I think this is going to be hard to get done. I think that you've got playing time available to him. I think he's looking for. I think if he ever got into the portal, you were a strong possibility. I think that his high school coach knows some of the folks on Tech staff, but West Virginia, right, wrong, or indifferent, they named an interim head coach, one of their assistants, and whether ends up being, the full-time guy or not. And so I think a lot of these players that jumped into the portal kind of now are like, okay, I'll come back, or, I'll make it as an option to return to Morgantown. And so that's a bit tricky. But, Kansas State, they've got a lot to offer. They've got an Elite Eight,
Yes, they
do. Toussaint is originally from the Bronx. And I believe, Marquise Noel is originally from like Brooklyn, and you can sell the undersized guard from New York, sure exceeded in our system. And obviously Jerome Tang is about as hot as any coach in the country from just a vibe and energy standpoint and all those things. So he's supposed to be there. I think actually it's today through Wednesday. And then I think Wednesday through Friday is he's supposed to be in Lubbock. And so
let's get him on the weekend in the LBK.
Well,
yeah. Manhattan Tuesday. You can have Tuesday.
the Little Apple.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's the crossover, Bronx and all that. Come out to the New York of the Plains, boys.
You just hope that, in some ways you look at it and go, man, it's good that we get him last. It's good that we get him, but
if he makes it.
Exactly. And I think that the concern there is that sometimes, Kansas State may go, hey, man, we need to know right now whether you're in or out before you leave here. And, kids get squeezed or kids feel pressured or, I don't know what game will be played, but a lot of times, there's all these visits planned. And it's like they get somewhere. It's like, okay, man, I'm done. This is where I wanted to be, what I needed to see, and all those things. So we'll see. I think again, you are trying to find somebody that can help you immediately, whether it's a 6-foot tough guard like Joe Toussaint, who came off the bench last year in Lubbock and I think lit you up for like 22 points. I think he was like 14 out of 12 out of 14 at the free throw line. I mean, he just getting into the lane, and I'd love some toughness at the guard spot, man. From a guy that's he played at Iowa, then at West Virginia, and then obviously could end up somewhere different. And we'll see what else happens out there. The name Javon Quinterly is going to get popped out there, and everybody under the sun with an available spot is going to have their eyes on him, or you just hold the spot, which I'm not a fan of. But if you can't find something that makes sense or is an upgrade, you just simply have no choice, and you're just going to have to wait. I just would rather help my team as quickly as I could. That's the thing. Whereas if you hold it, you're helping the 24-25 team out. You're not helping the 23-24 team out. So,
I think they've done a lot to help the team out, right? This has been a pretty nice run through the first offseason. I shouldn't even call it an offseason because they hadn't played a season, but I seem like there's been some fairly consistent success.
Yeah, I think Chance McMillan, they've committed so long ago that Chance McMillan and Darian Williams, I think, were nice ads. These are pieces. And I think that one thing I'll guarantee you about this team, look, if Deshaun Jackson is still not going to be in play here, you still have some need for some size here. You've got a bit of a smaller roster in that it goes back to the original problem you had. It's really just Warren Washington and Robert Jennings in the post. unless you're going to use the young man that they signed from the prep school that's originally out of Finland, I guess, who's about 6'8", but he's really young. That's and maybe you ask Cambridge to play big on occasion. That's where I mentioned he can kind of play the 4, the 5. But I think they've got a roster that will guard. I think that their best days will be ahead of them from the standpoint of this happens with every basketball season, and it's specifically going to happen in the portal era that they're different teams in January, February than they are in November and December. That's just the way it goes. This typically happens with basketball anyway, but much more so when all these pieces are new and it's like nobody knows what they've got. You could look like gangbusters in November, come out of the gate hot, and then the wheels fall off, or you can just take a while to gel, and I think Grant is very confident in his ability to kind of coach them as they go along and have them playing their best, later on in the season. And he full well knows it's going to take a bit. It could be a bit rocky, but I love the piece that you just added. And I'm of the opinion that, I'd love to add another piece like it.
Man, what an interesting few months on the job so far for Coach McCaslin, and an interesting one to observe so far for Tech basketball fans. We were hoops heavy today. So thanks for indulging us. And Chris, appreciate your time and perspectives as always, man. Enjoyed it. Great to be back with old Chris, instant gratification level. That's what we call him on the streets.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? I mean,
good can get it.
Yeah, I mean, good things come to those who wait. I totally get it. But man, if I tell you, hey man, I'll give you quite a bit of money right now, or I'll give you a whole lot like 5 years from now, what are you doing?
I'm gonna take my chances on right now.
Yeah, I mean,
the way I'm living, I'm gonna take my chances right now.
I was always the one that, like, when you found the, I don't know, let's go way back in the day when you had the sneakers that you thought were good, or the Gerbeau jeans, or the who knows, whatever it was that was the flavor of the day fashion wise back. I need some new Drakkar Noir, some smell good. I needed it like right now. Like I've got to have that, right now. I don't want to, we'll get it in a couple weeks, or, you save up your money. No, so anyway, that's just how I roll.
And you don't know this out there, but Chris was 8 years old when he was demanding that scent from his mother. I've got a girl waiting on the playground next week, Mom.
Was that like this? What was that like? I'm trying to think of the other cologne that was just like all the rage. Obsession was one.
Obsession.
Drakkar. Yes, exactly. Like
in my day, junior high locker room is Michael Jordan cologne. I didn't like Michael Jordan though, so I was the only guy that wasn't smelling like Michael Jordan cologne.
It had the little 23 medallion on there. The little
very
silver,
classy.
Yeah, 23 on the silver on the bottle. Yeah. See?
Hilarious. You don't think of professional athlete or just athlete in general and scent, but Mike made it work. He made so many things work in that way. Okay, who knew we were going to wrap it up with a scent or fragrance conversation? That's why you stayed till the end. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'll be back around to do it again tomorrow on Locked On Texas Tech.